Hello everyone, my name is Martha. I'm a relationship counselor and clinical sexologist, and I'm with Katrin with Love. So Katrin specializes in supporting people with vaginismus, and in this video, she has kindly agreed to share with us her vaginismus story.
Thanks again for having me. Well, my vaginismus story first began with the little red flag that I didn't quite see as such a red flag at the time, but it was the inability to use tampons when I tried to. And I think this is a common thread for a lot of people who've experienced vaginismus. I remember wanting to go swimming and therefore wanting to wear a tampon for the first time and simply it not fitting. It's like there was a wall there, and throwing tampon after tampon in the garbage, upsetting myself, frustrated in my body at why it wasn't working when it seemed to be such a simple thing for others. I didn't have very much support with inserting a tampon. My older sister, kind of gave me some tips. My mom said, oh, it should work just fine. But I gave up at that point. And so for a few years after that, I wasn't sexually active. I wasn't using a tampon. The pain of it just made me want to avoid it naturally, like the cycle of pain works. And at 18 years old, I tried having penetrative sex for the first time with my boyfriend at the time. And again, I experienced this wall. And I started to doubt, do I even have a vaginal opening? Another common thread with us, because it's like there's just no going in. The pelvic floor muscles are so tight. And I tried to push through that over the next few attempts with penetrative sex with my boyfriend. And I was able to have maybe just the head of his penis inside, but it was just excruciatingly painful. Stabbing sensation with a knife that's been heated over open fire. So, of course, at that point, I said, okay, something must be up. I should go get checked out and see what's going on. So at that time, I went to try to get a pap smear for the doctor to check anatomically if everything's okay. And I experienced the same body response being active at the pap smear attempt. And so my butt would actually lift off the table on those crinkly sheets at the doctor's office. And my legs basically the whole body would kind of tighten up and try to avoid the speculum naturally because of the pain I've already experienced in that area. And so the pap smear didn't work. My doctor first said, you should probably just wait. Your body just might not be ready for penetrative sex just yet. You're a little bit too young. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm 18. I mean, other people have penetrative sex earlier than that. I don't think I'm too young. But okay, I mean, I guess he didn't have any answers. On top of that, he was a male penis owner. And there was a part of me that I later worked through around fear of the masculine and not feeling entirely safe in my body around a male. And so maybe that may have contributed to my pap smear not going so well. I came back to him a little while later, a couple of weeks. I put my foot down and I said, okay, I want to see a gynecologist. Please give me a requisition to a gynecologist. And at that time he did, but he also said, you know, why don't you try drinking some wine to relax? Maybe that'll help. Funny enough, being 18, that's illegal to be consuming alcohol at that age. And it's just interesting how we get this kind of medical recommendation simply because our doctors aren't educated for the most part in the body response of vaginismus. So understandable, but of course we wish their education did include this very important piece. And so later I went to a gynecologist. Vaginismus as a word wasn't mentioned either. She was able to insert part of her finger. She didn't think anything was really wrong. But of course, I was left desiring more answers. I had already Googled and come across the word vaginismus, read about dilators, late at night trying to figure out what's happening in my body. I got a lot of answers, but none of them were being confirmed by the medical professionals in my life. It was only after that two things happened. First, I went to see a sex therapist, and this was through my boyfriend at the time's parents' work benefits. So that was a fun conversation that he had with them to have me go to a sex therapist. And explore this further. And there, I may not have been ready emotionally for some of the conversations that she was trying to have with me around my self-pleasure practice. And when in my life things happened in which I started to develop shame around touching my body, around my sexuality, around pleasure as a whole. And she was kind of digging deep into these patterns that were making me feel very uncomfortable to discuss. And so the sex therapy itself wasn't very effective over those few sessions. I basically gave up on it because I wasn't quite ready, or maybe her approach was a little bit too aggressive, maybe a combination of the two. But she did mention vaginismus, and she did confirm that this is the body response I was experiencing. And she did talk about dilating. So this is kind of when my healing journey officially began, because somebody confirmed it for me. And I was given some dilating instructions. And this was a 2-pager of written instructions on how to use these tools. She recommended that I get them. And I thought it would be, I was very hopeful. It was a wonderful start. Yet the dilating instructions were very limited, and they didn't include any of the very important pieces of emotional healing, of embracing pleasure, of getting used to self-pleasuring, all of that. And I basically went on to poke myself with dilators until I gave up, which happened on multiple occasions. My dilator sat in the closet for a very long time gathering dust, because naturally I didn't have the guidance that I needed. It was my parents who got the dilators for me, which was also a fun story I've written about. They went to a sex store, talked to the sex store clerk about vaginismus, wondering if there's any tool like dilators in this sex store. And so one day they came home with them, and that's kind of how I started with them. But the other thing that happened was I went to an internal ultrasound, and to rule out any other physically, anatomically, things that could have contributed to my experience of pain. And that was very traumatic, because I was able to allow the speculum in. It was like a thin, long wand, but I was crying the entire time. I was in a lot of pain, tears welling up, and the ultrasound specialist, she seemed very kind. She was very compassionate kind of throughout. She was trying to do her job. I was trying to grit my teeth and sit through it. But what had happened at the end of that session, and I had gotten dressed, and she kind of came out of the room and she said, "Oh, don't worry, honey. It's going to get better after you have kids." And hearing that created mixed feelings, right? I was upset that she felt like I needed to first have kids in order for this to get better. And to me, it sounded impossible. I needed a boyfriend first. I think at that time I was single at the time of the ultrasound. I wanted to have sex. I wanted to enjoy sex before getting married, because I wanted to do that first before having kids. So it was just like a really unfortunate comment to hear. Yet at the same time, it also kind of acted as a motivator, because I heard her say that. And then to myself, I thought, no, lady, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm not going to need to have kids for this to go away. There must be another way. And with that, I kind of started doing my own digging, my own growth journey, putting the dilators to the side, knowing that this isn't going to be effective until something shifts internally, emotionally. But of course, at the time, it was all very scrambled. I didn't quite have this sort of structure that I've created now. And I think for many, many reasons, I needed to go through that trial and error so that I can make all of the mistakes, most of the mistakes possible in this process, so that I can learn from them and I can guide people to not make those very same mistakes again. So I'm very grateful in some way that it worked out this way. It took me 6 years, from 18 to 24, until I had my first penetrative sex attempt that was pain-free, and then later became really pleasurable. But that's essentially my story. I like to tack onto this as well that a pelvic floor physiotherapist that has experience with vaginismus would have been incredibly helpful for me in the physical healing journey. And so I encourage people to seek out that kind of help. And again, I'm in a way grateful that I didn't know about pelvic floor physiotherapists at the time, because it kind of forced me to learn a lot about that physical healing journey so that I can guide people through it in a more detailed way. But of course, if I had a pelvic floor physiotherapist by my side, a sex therapist by my side, you know, professionals trained in this kind of work, specifically in the context of vaginismus, my journey definitely would have been shorter than the 6 years.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So you are right. A pelvic floor specialist will be very good. A lot of my clients with vaginismus, they are not ready, they are not comfortable with being touched, and not all pelvic floor specialists are comfortable to counsel people with vaginismus. So you are right that it would be great to have somebody who to do the talking and teaching and supporting, and somebody to do the hands-on work as well. That would be great. I think the key is to find people who specialize in supporting people with vaginismus, because it can be very damaging if they go to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and say things like just drink wine, or just use this numbing gel, or just relax, or just apply lubricant. Like, these things actually are so frustrating to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's my story. Thank you for asking, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey and for the work that you do. Do you want to give a shout out of your website?
Oh yeah, sure. If you'd like to get in touch, have a chat, you can head to katrinwithlove.com. That's Katrin with love.com. And on Instagram, we also have really real conversations and insights and support. So my Instagram is pain free and intimate with dots in between. So pain free and intimate.
Yes.
And how about you? People watching this video, where can they find you?
Oh, thank you. So you can find me at eroscoaching.com, and all my social media links are there, eroscoaching.com. So thank you, Katrin, for doing this. And if you are watching this video, we actually have 4 other videos that you may want to also check out.
Yeah, they're great.
Thank you.